There is an app in Iceland whose entire job is to stop you from accidentally sleeping with your cousin. You bump phones. Two Icelanders, one little bump, and if you're too closely related, the app basically goes, "Nope, family reunion, put it away." It was even promoted with a slogan along the lines of, "Bump the app before you bump in bed," which is hilarious for about 4 seconds. Then your brain catches up and goes, "Wait, why would a country need that?" Buckle up, because today we're answering a genuinely cursed question. Why is inbreeding a hard absolutely not for humans, but animals sometimes look like they're doing it with the confidence of a man who has never read a warning label? I'm Mr. Q, and today the family tree is becoming less of a tree and more of a wreath. Let's meet two people. We'll call them Jack and Jenny. They meet as adults. Sparks fly. Romantic music. Somewhere, a Netflix producer starts typing. Then comes the plot twist. They are long-lost siblings. Congratulations. Your romantic comedy is now a documentary nobody wants to finish. Now, some relatives who were separated very young and reunited as adults have reported intense attraction. People sometimes call this genetic sexual attraction, which sounds extremely scientific for something science still hasn't fully figured out. But there is a simpler idea that matters here. Normally, you grow up around your siblings. You watch them eat cereal with a fork and lie badly to your parents for 18 years. Your brain quietly installs a filter. Family, do not date. That filter is related to what psychologists call the Westermark effect. Growing up closely together tends to reduce later sexual attraction. So the incest ick is not just society wagging a finger. Part of it may be your brain doing antivirus scans on the bloodline. No childhood together? That particular filter may never install. And suddenly the universe has written the worst episode of Love is Blind. So why did evolution bother building all these alarms? One word: recessive genes. Here's the painless version. You carry 2 copies of most genes, one from your mother, one from your father. Some harmful mutations are recessive. One broken copy may sit there quietly, like an employee who has mastered looking busy. But 2 broken copies can cause real trouble. With unrelated parents, the odds that both carry the exact same rare, harmful mutation are usually lower. But close relatives inherited a lot of DNA from the same recent ancestors. So if one sibling is carrying grandpa's limited edition genetic disaster, the other sibling has a much better chance of owning the same collector's item. 2 relatives having a child is like photocopying the same typo twice, and then handing the baby both copies. That increases the risk of genetic disorders, reduced fertility, and what biologists politely call inbreeding depression, which sounds like your chromosomes are sad. They are not sad. They are filing complaints. So humans built layers of defense. First, the instinctive nope. Then culture. Then law. And Iceland said, fine, apparently we also need Bluetooth. Here is the big misconception. People assume animals inbreed because animals have no morals. Correct. Animals do not have marriage licenses. But genetics does not care whether you are a human, a lion, a mouse, or a suspiciously confident goat. The recessive gene math is still the same. Inbred animals can also have lower survival, weaker immunity, reduced fertility, and offspring with the build quality of a chair assembled at 3 a.m. So the real question is not, why don't animals avoid inbreeding? It is, how do they avoid it without lawyers, dating apps, or one terrifying aunt who knows everybody's genealogy? And nature has 3 major cheat codes. Cheat code 1, get out. Take lions. When young males mature, they usually leave, or get forced out of, their birth pride. One day you are a beloved cub. The next day, your father is basically saying, "Son, the world is huge. Go experience it somewhere far away from your sisters." Then he wanders, forms a coalition, fights rival males, and may take over another pride. It is nature's most violent gap year. But genetically, it works. Moving away means mating with animals from another group instead of turning the family tree into a recycling symbol. Many animals use some version of this. One sex leaves, or individuals mate outside the home group. Geography becomes birth control for bad decisions. Cheat code 2. Know your relatives. Animals are not filling out ancestry forms. They use smell, familiarity, social memory, and other cues. Basically, while humans ask, "What do you do for work?" some animals ask, "Why do you smell like my mother?" And then the date ends early. Many species avoid familiar partners or prefer unfamiliar ones. Nature's version of genetic diversity wearing cologne. No paperwork, just one sniff and a firm boundary. Cheat code 3. Shut the factory down. Now meet the naked mole rat. It looks like a sad thumb with teeth. Naked mole rats live in colonies where one queen does most of the breeding, while many other adults are reproductively suppressed, basically on airplane mode until the social situation changes. Nature did not give them Tinder. It gave one animal admin privileges. Other species delay maturity or suppress reproduction until the social situation changes. The animal is not broken. The factory is closed for maintenance. So no, animals are not casually ignoring inbreeding. Many of them are solving the same problem humans solve, just with exile, smell, hormones, and significantly fewer legal fees. Wild animals often evolve ways to avoid inbreeding. Humans looked at those safeguards and said, "That's adorable. Move aside." Selective breeding can trap animals inside a tiny gene pool because people choose the same face, body shape, and bloodline again and again. The result can be striking breeds with medical records thick enough to stop a door. We bred some dogs until breathing became cardio. We turned cute little face into skull architecture under active investigation. And then we called the paperwork a pedigree. This proves the point. Animals do not have magical immunity to inbreeding. If you force the gene pool to become a gene puddle, nature sends the invoice. But sometimes, nature runs out of cheat codes. A population crashes, the habitat shrinks, and only a handful of animals remain. At that point, the choice is no longer inbreed or find a healthier partner. The choice is inbreed or disappear. Better a fragile family than no species at all. Which brings us to the last woolly mammoths on Wrangel Island. After mainland mammoths vanished, a tiny, isolated population survived on this Arctic island. At one point, their breeding population may have fallen to as few as 8 animals. 8! That is not a population. That is a very uncomfortable group chat. And yes, they kept it in the family, because there was nobody else. Their diversity was low, harmful mutations were a problem, and life was not going great. But here is the twist. They survived for roughly 6,000 more years. 6,000! That is longer than most human civilizations have managed without inventing a new tax. Recent genetic evidence suggests inbreeding alone probably was not the final knockout blow. They were vulnerable and genetically compromised, but something else appears to have finished them off. Nature's version of, "The incest didn't get us, the season finale did." So here is the answer. Humans and animals are playing the same genetic game. Same recessive mutations. Same probability problem. Same potential disaster. Nobody got a special pass. Humans use familiarity, taboos, laws, and apparently Icelandic software. Animals use migration, scent, social structure, delayed maturity, and occasionally the strategy known as, "Please leave the pride before this gets weird." And when a species becomes dangerously small, Inbreeding may stop being the worst option, because extinction just walked into the room holding a clipboard. Nature is not moral. Nature is not sentimental. Nature is an accountant with blood on the spreadsheet. It may let you borrow genetic diversity for a while, but eventually, it sends the invoice. I'm Mr. Q. Subscribe, because that is the only trait I'm actively encouraging you to pass around.